Okay, so go ahead and we have a work session tonight, so we'll go ahead and open that up.
All right, thank you, Bonnie. I will begin basically by sort of recapping where we are in the process. We're getting towards the end, which is a good thing. We've got mobile home parks, penalties and violations, which I've got the city attorney taking a look at. Wireless telecommunication towers, which I'm not sure we're going to make much of any change to. We've got a chapter on peers, which is the last chapter in the zoning ordinance. So we'll take a look at that. We're going to take a look at and staff and I need to get together on this because I want to kind of get their take on the planned open space at this. Hey, Libby. I'm just getting started, so you're perfect. I'm just sort of recapping where we are versus what we've got left to do. And as I was saying earlier, we still have the pier section of this ordinance, violations of penalties, which the city attorney is taking a look at. Mobile home parks, home businesses, wireless telecommunications facilities. Again, I don't think we're going to see a lot of major changes in there, but we do have that coming up. We will not be reviewing the environmental management area, largely because we have a grant with DEQ to rewrite for us, which, and the floodplain article, which I'm not sure there'll be a whole lot of revisions to that, but we recently revised Chapter 42, which covers floods. And so I just want to make sure we don't run into any discrepancies there. With that in mind, I did actually number the pages this time, but I got you a lot more stuff than last month. So I'll cover the new stuff first, I guess, and then we'll go from there. As you probably remember, about 2 years ago, we did the planned unit development districts. And I'm not proposing, this will be on page 1, Article 8.2, Roman numeral 8.2. Not really making a whole lot of changes to that since it's so new. However, I did do some work on page 8 and 9, where basically I just did some adjustments because of the conditional use permit stuff, which we talked about in other districts. That basically anything is allowed. The only difference would be in an overlay district, it needs to be something that's stated at the time. And I did the same thing on pages 12 and 13 under the waterfront commercial part. Same thing on page 15 and on page 16. The big thing that I did, and I want to call your attention to it, is that I moved the signage language from waterfront commercial 8.3, and I'm having a hard time finding it right. Page 12, thank you, Thomas. And the idea is to move all the signage language, like I covered last time with village commercial, to move all of it into our sign ordinance, which is Appendix D. So for right now, I've just taken it, I haven't even changed any of it. We'll do that when we do the sign ordinance together. But I have moved it. And probably most of the definitions to do with signs, I will also put in the Appendix D, except for the definition of the sign itself, of course. That's the first time I've really talked this much since I've been sick. So this It's a good exercise. Article 9, B1, on page 1. We covered this last time, but I wanted to cover the fact that I did some changes to traffic impact analysis in regard to comments made by the Planning Commission. I did talk to the city engineer over the past month since we last met together, and what he told me is that the report really varies on the type of development. So it's hard to really get a price range down because some will be really quick and some will be more detailed. And it's hard to know what you're going to get until you get the proposal. Let's see, of course, I kept everything pretty much the same as we talked about the last time. Actually, I kept it exactly the same. Article 10B2, and I'm going over this a little quicker than I would normally because we went over it last time we were together. I'm on page 1 under Article 10, B2 District Regulations. Again, Article 10 is a Roman numeral.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
There we go.
Okay.
I did the same thing.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
As I did last time and kept it, took out commercial uses because, conditional use permits because those were already in fact out. Left the language in there the same as was in the other article about a traffic impact analysis with your changes, suggested changes, which I thought were good ideas. That were pretty much all your ideas. But anyway, Article 11, Village Community District. Page 1, not really anything different there. Page 2, again, did a little bit of doctoring around the conditional uses. A little bit different layout for the conditional uses because village commercial was worded a little bit differently. So I think we get there, but just kind of look at it from a different angle. There's a lot of prohibited uses in village community, which is probably why well, I know it is. So when we had the tattoo parlor several years back, that's why he had to go into a B2 area because it wasn't allowed. Again, same language about the traffic impact analysis. And sign requirements on page 9. I did the same thing here I did for the PUD section in waterfront commercial. It's actually on page 9. I didn't change a word of it. I just moved it over to Appendix D, and we'll have a chance to look at Appendix D. There's a lot about science in village commercial. It's a whole lot of language. Okay, moving past village commercial, which ends on page 11. The next page over is Article 11.1, GC General Commercial District. I'm going to slow down a little bit here because we had a certain amount of discussion about the big woods and specifically addressing certain parcels in the 88 Assembly. I left the big woods because the big woods is basically explains what the general commercial district is. And so I didn't change that at all. What I have done is threaded together that resolution 4095, which was approved by the City Council in 2017. So under number 4, I threaded into part, development shall be of a gateway quality, including site layout, building design, excuse me, construction materials, building uses, and landscape design. We're putting a little bit extra emphasis on developments in general commercial because they are our gateway district. Encourage the use of shares, number 5 under section 11.1-1. Encourage the use of shared stormwater quantity and quality control structures, which is always a nice idea. That is unchanged. Encourage consolidation of curb cuts, driveways, and parking areas, also unchanged. This is what I wanted to explain. Under 7 and 8, 7 not so much. Development should enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Poquoson, include opportunity to remain in the city for jobs, shopping, dining, recreation, and/or entertainment. I don't think anybody really needs to have their arm twisted and seeing the value of that. Number 8 and number 9, I kept, although I did not, set out a separate section for the assemblage. But I did want to stay faithful to this resolution, which, again, the city council approved. So number 8, the city should continue its efforts to develop the economic development authority owned assemblage and to further refine a specific development vision which will allow the site to be marketed for specific rather than general uses. Now, a lot of that's going to be up to the Economic Development Authority. They've got some work to do to develop that vision. But
I got a question, Wally.
sure.
Years back, they talked about that Walmart grocery store coming in.
Oh, yeah.
Would that have been okay to have put into the big woods?
No. Big Woods has been reworded since then to basically include most uses as allowable only with a conditional use permit. So the purpose here is to list permitted uses that are not big box retail. Because I understand that was
That really wasn't
that
big box
preceded.
retail, though. That was a grocery store.
That's what I was getting at.
Well, a grocery store would be allowed with a conditional use permit.
Well, that's kind of what they were asking
That's
to
what it was.
put in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a grocery portion of it. It wasn't the
Well,
whole
for
garden.
whatever reason, it became very controversial in the city. It predates me.
Yeah, I know, me
But,
too.
but apparently it became very controversial, and the city council had some
But it has
concerns with it. So,
another grocery store would have been permissible in this particular case.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
just not Walmart.
yes, yes. The city should consider public-private partnerships for development on economic development-owned assemblage that may, that increase, needs to be increasing, instead of increased, that may include increased, oh, no, I was right, I'm sorry. May include increased opportunities for cultural, recreational, entertainment uses that will be revenue generating for the city. Again, that's taken from the resolution. Those are not my words. The words of the resolution.
Wally, that would be things that would not come before planning commission. The EDA would reserve the right to develop that, or would it need a
Well,
conditional
it would
use permit?
depend on what the use is. It could very well be a conditional use permit. If it was the grocery store that was mentioned earlier,
Right.
that would be allowable. What I have added under permitted uses would be a regional sporting goods store, a public-private recreation and agricultural center district, project rather, high-tech manufacturing, which I've included a definition of high-tech manufacturing, and a medical facility. So none of that is really,
So what I'm getting at is the infrastructure to support such a facility with
Yes.
roadways, with the legacy project coming
Right.
into thing, the roadways going in and out
Right.
of the city. And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that's a little bit of my concern with specific references to such
well,
as this.
that's one reason we have the traffic impact statement that we've required now. We're very aware, staff is anyway, and I'm sure a lot of the city is very aware that Victory Boulevard is really our only way in and out.
Correct.
And so we need to keep that where relatively free-flowing. Unfortunately, at the same time, those are the only properties that are really open that are left in the city.
Right.
So we've got that sort of pressure in that particular area. So we need to make real sure that we are allowing uses that will be of a benefit of the city and that we will be able to take traffic impacts into concern and things of that nature. But yeah, there's a lot of reason to be worried about that corridor from the standpoint of development because it is really the open area that we.
Right.
Hey, Wally,
Yes.
just to confirm, the purple are
Yeah.
the comments that aren't going to stay in there. Those are just notes for.
Those are just notes from me and staff to y'all.
Okay. I know we discussed this last time, and I think we're down to like one reference, and I just still didn't understand why specifically the big woods would be in the article, even, so like in number 3, I mean, do we have any other place that we reference a very specific name? Or
Well, the
can
Big
that just-
Woods essentially is the general commercial district.
But the Big Woods is the specific name of the specific district, not the district, the specific
Area.
area. So can we just change that to say inherit in the general commercial district?
We could.
I'm just a consistency's sake, like nowhere else in here do we name a very specific.
Well, I think the difference is because in this situation, I have a large portion of that general commercial district owned by the EDA, owned by, it's not the city, it's owned actually by the Economic Development Authority. But that resolution that the Wally keeps referring to was passed by council to more or less guide the development of those parcels. So that's why they're called out specifically.
Okay.
Okay. And let's see, everything else was pretty much as I talked about it last time. Traffic impact analysis is on page 5 under. And note about it being licensed in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Development Review Committee, I think I covered this last, but we cannot require a pre-conference, but as I'm remembering now, I did talk about this last time, somebody would be ill-advised to start doing development having not talked to staff at all. So it's highly recommended that they do that. The DPRC, of course, is the Development Plan Review Committee, which,
Well, I've never heard of the Development Review Committee. Is there-
well, yeah, we have one whenever we get a site plan in. We'll give a copy to engineering, we'll give one to utilities.
So it's a part of the city then?
Yes,
Function, okay.
yes.
It's not a committee as elected or
No,
like the
no,
BZA or-
it's an administrative committee.
Okay,
Yes.
something like what you do. You just got struck.
Okay, and looks like we've got general commercial in there again, so let's just skip right past. We're gonna go to Article 11.2, which is gonna be the Research and Development Office District. I don't believe I covered this last time. I think we ran out of time. Permitted uses, anywhere it says anything about conditional use, I took that out because that's of course allowed. The planning commission makes recommendation and the city council approves it. We have one such application tonight. So, and again, I made some adjustment from the city council to zoning administrator because plans were reviewed administratively. That was on the top of page 2. And I made the corresponding adjustments on page 3 as well. And you'll notice under C here, which is almost halfway down page 3, I've done this in all the districts, but I've tried to, we've got a definition of street class of, because Virginia DOT tends to change those periodically. So what we've done is, in the definition, we faded to their functional guide to highways in the state, just like we did with the subdivision ordinance. So we won't have to worry about being out of sync with that. Okay. Thoroughfare requirements on page 4. Basically, I'm sounding like a broken record here, but we got traffic impact analysis there. You'll notice on page 5, about halfway down, the read out portion, we actually already required a traffic impact statement, but we've just tried to make it a little bit easier to follow. Okay, on page 6, basically I just changed the language to be the determination of the zoning administrator has a lot of power. Under 11.2-13, Development Review Committee, again, Mr. Stevens, that's just the staff group that gets together to review these plans. And everything else under R&D is just basically corrected to reflect that site plans are administrative and not legislative. Okay, let me see what else we got. Sections last. Go to the next section, Appendix D, signs. Which will be towards the end. It's page 1.
Pardon?
Appendix D, signs, on page 1. It's several pages down. I'm skipping over the architectural
Okay,
control.
that's where you lost me.
Okay. I added a lot of sign definitions that are not currently in Appendix D, but should be.
It's all in there.
Almost to the back.
Signs?
Signs, everywhere, signs.
It's only a few pages from the back.
It's only a few pages from the back.
Yeah,
It's like 4 pages from the back. And really what I wanted to illustrate here is just where I put all that sound from the plan unit development, waterfront commercial, and the village commercial. You can see that in here. May do some reorganizing, in its final form. I may put those in front of the commercial. But I will not change the language until we review it. Okay, now we're ready. Sorry about this. Now we're ready to go back to the architectural review.
I'm sorry, where?
We're going to go back to Article 10, 11.3, Roman numeral, which is the pages right before the Appendix D that I just went over. Y'all may remember, or the Planning Commission may remember, that Mr. Cannella gave a good presentation on just exactly what we wanted to do. We had some discussion about it, and we have been thinking additionally about it. In this paragraph under 11.3-2, where after the stuff I've got in blue, it says, and non-residential residential structures within 300 feet of the western and eastern right-of-ways of With Creek Road. We have some commercial uses that are actually outside of that area. 185 being an example. Riggins Ford being another example. Right now, they don't fall within any of these categories that have any kind of architectural review at all. So, I mean, part of Riggins Ford might, but not all of it, because some of it's in a residential zone, as you all know. So, sort of wanted to get the planning commission's feeling on whether we ought to regulate all non-residential structures.
Wouldn't they be,
And see.
like 185, be grandfathered because of the fact it's been there, been under multiple usage, under multiple names, but it's still basically doing the same thing? It's a restaurant in a residential area.
The use would be, if there was if a different restaurant wanted to come in there tomorrow, the use would be. But all we're talking about here is the architectural review.
Right.
So if a new restaurant wanted to come in to 185's location right now, how the code reads, it wouldn't technically be a part of the commercial district, or the architectural review district, the control district. So,
And why would that not be part of it? That's what I'm getting at.
because it is zoned residential, so when we call out the commercial district specifically, it's not in one of those.
Right.
And then the only other language that adds certain places in the city to the district is structures located within the 300 feet of the western and eastern right-of-way line of With Creek Road, extending from Hampton's corporate limits northward to Yorktown Road. So if the desire is to include commercial structures basically in commercial districts and commercial structures in residential districts, then we could just delete that language and insert a comma after business commercial district and say, and commercial structures located in any other district. This way, 185, a new use would be subject to architectural review, a new commercial use. And if something wanted to go where Riggins was, it would, or any, and it to include the barber shop building, I believe.
Yeah.
So we have a few of these outliers where it's been a use for so long, but it's not technically part of the architectural control district. So just trying to be consistent.
That would be like the old crab cake house, too.
The crab cake house was my next example. So we have just a few of these throughout the city. So if we just expand it to say, and commercial structures located in any other district, then those commercial structures would be subject to architectural review just as any other commercial structure would be.
Well, my concern is not being new construction, and you're putting all this criteria on coming under an architectural review. If I wanted to rent 185, just like it is, I don't understand why we have to place a restriction for architectural review, so that the way I'm interpreting this is you can come and tell me, oh, well, Libby, we don't like the way the front of that building looks, so we want an A, and we want this, and we want that. I don't know that, I think that's a pretty deep reach, personally.
Well, I appreciate your opinion, but, the purpose of the article is why we have an ARB and a control district. So if the intent is to still have architectural review, whether it be performed by us administratively or the ARB, then we want to be consistent throughout the city and make sure that the ARB or our staff is reviewing, the architectural elements of commercial buildings.
I can see that in new construction, but not in an existing building that's been there.
Well,
for
and we
years. I don't
wouldn't
believe that.
retroactively review 185.
Well, I don't think legally we could.
Right, but it would be for, if 185 closed and a new restaurant wanted to come in, then we want to make sure that we are able to review their new architectural elements, signage, paint, you know, that's why we, if it's changed. Right, if it's changed.
If it's a completely different restaurant.
Right.
To be clear, this would, any other business that's not in a residential district would be subject to these same requirements.
That's exactly right. We're
Just
just, we're
create
trying to make it
consistency.
consistent for any commercial structure in the city, whether it's in a commercial district or otherwise, that it's subject to the same architectural review.
And maybe we should specify that where it changes.
Right. Yeah, and we can expand and, you know, we
I
can
know
do
what-
that.
Because, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, if somebody's moving in there and they're not changing the look of it, then there's really no reason that we ought to have ARB review.
And
But
we
if
would,
somebody is changing it, I could see where we might want.
Different, yeah. If my proposal is to change it, of course.
And I mean, we
but
can
just
put in the
to-
language that reflects that intent.
Like the
That's just an
color.
overreach on some of these older,
unless they wanted to drastically change it, it would not go to the ARB. They have, you know, there's a whole set of guidelines for ARB. Some of them are in this part of the code. We have some administrative leeway to approve signage, and on my desk right now, I have their color wheel of colors that we can approve for business. So, you know, unless it's really new and really outside of what we can approve administratively, it doesn't go to the ARB anyways. We can polish the language up to reflect that.
Yeah, it just seems to me that if 185 were to sell the business, and of course, that place has been several different things already, it limits the value if you have to jump through 5 or 6 hoops to be able to open up another business with maybe a sign that tells you what the business is, et cetera. It would be,
Well, I think as Thomas said, we have a lot of administrative.
yeah, I know.
And in most cases, and I think this is right, in most cases, we're able to make a decision administratively just with a matter of a few emails. I mean, I know everybody probably remembers something else that preceded horror stories, maybe that we had back when Wendy's went in, but that's not really the composition of today's ARB. It's considerably more relaxed.
It's not, I understand your concern, and it's a point well made, but if it was the same use, we wouldn't hold them up from opening or
No.
starting the process for an ARB review. And we can turn those applications around pretty much as fast as we can
Where does it say
CUPs,
that in
because
here?
we have monthly meetings of the ARB.
I hear what you're saying, administrative review and all that, but where does it say that it wouldn't necessarily go to the,
They have a signed policy that they adopted and guidelines certain for us that aren't in the code. They're adopted guidelines by the ARB that guide us in what we can and can't approve administratively. I'm happy to send you a copy.
I just don't think you need to put too much,
I don't see it as an additional restriction on places if we add the language that you were suggesting.
hate to see so many restrictions put on it, and they're just like, you know what, I'm not dealing with that.
Yeah, well, we would, all things being equal, we want to make sure that we, provide an avenue for these buildings that may be we don't want to, believe me, we don't want to stand in the way of that either.
I mean, that business
So, I
revenue
mean,
is
business
important
is
to the city,
important.
becoming more and more important to the city.
Yeah.
Business revenue, and I think when you start making so many restrictions on them, that they just say, you know what, I can go right up here to the county, and I don't have to do all those, jump through all those hoops, and that's what happens. And that has happened in the past, where so many restrictions were put on commercial ventures that they were literally driven out of the city. That's way before your time too, but not before mine.
Right.
So I just, I just don't want to see that happen.
I have
Let
a-
us come back with some wording, addressing your concerns, and we'll take a look at it.
I have just a question is that if, say for instance, the Architectural Review Board, this is a hypothetical, turned them down, can they come back to a higher thing like either the Planning
They
Commission
can appeal to city council.
or City Council would be the next step?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so there is recourse.
Oh, yes,
All right.
yes. And if they don't like the city council, they can do a writ of certiorari, the appeals court, so there are several steps they can do.
Two things, just point of clarification, that I heard right. So what we're talking about in 11.3-2 is that it's just to make sure that all businesses in this city, regardless of whether they're in the commercial or residential, are falling under the same rules and regulation and guidance of,
That's correct.
if I want to take the Wendy's and turn it into something else, I have to be aesthetically appropriate falling under the ARB, whether I'm in the commercial or the residential. That's what we want to get everybody on the same page.
Correct.
Okay, and my other question is 11.3-1, purpose of this article. This is all language that's static, that's been used before. That's
Yes.
not new, nothing's
Nothing
changed.
is new. We're just trying to make 11.32 say the same thing that 11-3.1 says.
Okay.
And, I did want to note that the Architectural Review Board now and historically has been a board that developers, commercial specifically, have found very easy to work with. Oftentimes in their meetings, they will ask developers to make certain modifications and really have a discussion on what's feasible and not cumbersome on the developer, and usually reach a nice middle ground. I can say probably in the last 7 years, probably the last 7, maybe 8, there's actually only been one appeal of ARB to City Council, so,
Bob Moses
right.
with it.
So it's not a board that developers has ever found, as a hurdle, I'll say.
I was thinking more the mom and pop businesses versus the new
Right,
development coming in. that kind of thing.
and we don't even, actually, I don't even think there's a application fee to the ARB, so it's as easy and accessible as we can really make it, and we can turn it around in usually no more than 6 weeks, depending on when they apply and, what the calendar's like.
But what we tend to do is, even if they have to go to architectural review, we'll still look at things like site plan and things like that. We won't hold them up for one thing. So, I mean, we try to run it concurrently as much as we can.
It's probably even more important in the residential areas, that there is some control. That building has been in a number of things. It was a little small grocery store at one time, an auto parts store. There's been a number of different things other than a restaurant. And, I think for the neighbors, for the adjoining properties, probably even more important that there be some control
Absolutely.
where it is in residential.
Absolutely. It is at sort of it is at an intersection that has a considerable amount of children and bus traffic, coming down off of Keogh. So yeah, absolutely. That's all I've got tonight. And we're actually on time, more or less.
You did good, Wally. All right, we got a couple of minutes to spare. If any break or anything before we start the meeting, you got about 5 minutes. If you need to break.